All right, this is Dr. Armstrong one last time, and this is the third and final um, of these little Renaissance lectures. And this one will turn us towards Ariosto. We'll begin by looking at the second of the two key ideas of Ficino that I want you to grasp. So one idea of Ficino's one Platonic idea that Ficino reintroduces to the West is this idea of serious play. We did not talk about that in class, but hopefully that can help some of you with understanding what Ariosto is doing. He is playing with what people take seriously and should not take seriously, and he's taking seriously this idea of play, this idea of exploration and testing of perspectives in order to help people educate themselves and fashion better selves, adopt better principles, better keels on the basis of which to build a life, an approach to life. The second key idea we've talked about a bunch at this point, and this is the idea of Platonic love. And I'm tempted just to read through all this, but I won't. You can do that yourself. But we have here the two types of love, the double Venus, and this is what Titian represents in his painting on sacred and profane love. One Venus clearly is the power of the soul to understand superior things. The other is the power to create inferior things. Understand superior things means turning towards the good, towards God. Creating inferior things means making things on this earth, including babies. And so we have the two Venuses representing the spiritual part of us, our heavenly soul, and the vulgar, profane, this worldly soul. Both have love. The love of the soul is contemplating divine beauty. The love for the actual physical person is procreating new life within the confines of marriage. Both are moved to procreate beauty, but each in its own way. The heavenly Venus strives through its intelligence to reproduce itself as exactly as possible, the beauty of higher things. The vulgar Venus strives, through the fertility of its divine seeds, to reproduce in the matter of the world the beauty which is divinely conceived within itself. So we can pass the divine spark along by making a new life, or we can pass the divine spark along by creating works of art that help turn us toward the good. And so Ariosto's poem, the ultimate beauty of it is meant to be a beauty that wakens us to higher things, that wakens us to superior things, that helps us to ultimately turn towards the divine, and that helps us to develop our intelligence. And we might say that this is the ultimate upshot of Canto 34. God sanctions St. John to enable Astolfo to carry out a mission by which he learns first that the chivalric code perspective, with its feudal relations and its courtly love, has led to the defection of human nature, has led to a distortion of relationship of man to man and man to woman. And what Astolfo realizes is that only through restoring their wits, their reason, their logos, can they possibly begin to have a right relationship to each other. And this right relationship of each to other can happen only if one is turned each the other toward the good, towards God. And we might say that this is ultimately what Ariosto's poem is trying to do. And then there's a brief of what, therefore, does Pausanias, don't worry about who Pausanias is, but Pausanias disapproves of love. And Ficino, by the way, this is Ficino himself writing, commenting on Plato's view of love. Ficino writes that he shall tell us, love might be disapproved of if a man is too eager for procreation and gives up contemplation, or is immoderately desirous of copulation with women, or consorts unnaturally with men, or prefers the beauty of the body to that of the soul. When he does that, he abuses the dignity of love. And this is exactly the kind of abuse we find in Farral, Rinaldo, and Sacripant. Farral and Rinaldo, they consort unnaturally. Not in the sense that they have sex with each other, but in the sense that they get on a horse and ride off together. And then I think here he means probably having sex. But it is a very sexually charged image. The two men riding on the same horse and in pursuit, supposedly, of a female, and meanwhile violating their code. And of course, those two and Sacripant are all very immoderately desirous of copulating with a female. Even when, as Sacripant realizes, even when he believes that Angelica is no longer worthy of his pursuit, he still wishes to pursue her precisely because his ultimate motivation is not finding a bridge to God, but sex. So, those are the two ideas. How are they present in Ariosto's text? Well, hopefully it's clear by this point. I've said things along the way in this lecture already in the previous two lectures. We might think of Canto Primo, the first canto of Orlando Furioso, as providing evidence, experimental evidence of the problem of the chivalric perspective. Right? He is writing, Ariosto is, of ladies' knights, of passions and of wars, of courtliness and of valiant deeds. Right? And so the passions that courtly love generates, the wars that the feudal relations generate. And so the first canto shows us people who have fashioned themselves in accord with the chivalric code and who, as a result, have these distorted perspectives on this world. This distorted perspective leaves them at the mercy of their basest or lowest desires. These desires lead them to be unhappy, and they lead them also to cause pain and suffering for others. If we turn to Canto 34, we get when the opening story of Lydia and Alceste gives us yet another example of how the chivalric code, the courtly love code in particular, distorts relationships between males and females. And Alceste, Lydia also gives us a clear reference or allusion to Francesca, linking this with Dante's poem. And then, of course, the journey to the moon, to the lowest of the heavenly spheres, is clearly invoking Ficino. The idea is that we're stepping outside of this world, just a step, in order to go to the moon, in order to go to a heavenly sphere, and from a superior vantage, look back on this earth and see, really see, from a higher perspective, how the chivalric code distorts and defects humans. And so fashioning oneself in accord with the chivalric code is unwise. One must instead pursue something else. What is this most serious thing in which one must engage? Well, it is play. Play understood as education. So the highest or most serious thing is that kind of play in which we take seriously nothing of this world. We do not become attached to or let rule over us anything in this world. Instead, we seek to understand superior things, and then from that vantage refashion ourselves so as to develop a this-worldly life for the individual and a this-worldly society for the community that will lead us to this worldly happiness founded on right understanding of God and human nature, and that is more likely to lead to the salvation that the Renaissance Roman Catholic, just like the medieval Roman Catholic, pursued. And so we'll end with this final stanza, which we didn't get to look at in class. But we have an explanation of how people lose their minds for love in a bad way. And this is what Pausanias, that man to whom Ficino referred, was worried. Some lose their minds for love, and some by seeking honors or wealth as they wander the earth. Right? The courtly lover loses his mind in pursuit of the female whom he attempts to physically dominate. The knight seeks honors and wealth in serving his lord as he wanders the earth to fight battles. Some fawn on the rulers or study magic, wreaking havoc with various elements, or they come to grief in pursuit of art. But broadly speaking, it's valuing some one thing more than the sum of all life that does it. The ruined mind of a poet or a sophist up there is easy to find. And this is because poets, like tragic poets, who get us to focus on this worldly passions, or sophists, rhetoricians, who inflame our passions in order to get us to do certain things. That's why they're so bad. Traditionally, if you look around today, a lot of politicians, a lot of movies are all about valuing some one thing in this world, valuing some one thing that we desire. and focusing, obsessing on, pursuing that some one thing in creation more than anything else in creation. The antidote to that problem is to look at all of life, to step back and to experiment and experience different perspectives in order to understand more fully how human nature works, in order to understand more fully the ultimate context and nature of things. With that understanding, one will not take seriously some one thing, and one will not, as a result, defect him or herself. Instead, understanding the truth of human nature, understanding more fully the truth of higher things, one can perfect oneself, achieving this worldly happiness and becoming more likely to achieve otherworldly salvation.